Welcome to the Victor Emmanuel Nature Tours webinar. I am Ben Reynolds, producer and host of the Vent webinar series. Thank you for joining us today. We are delighted to offer this educational presentation, and we hope you enjoyed today's topic on Hungary and the Czech Republic, birds and music from Budapest to Prague. I would like to welcome and introduce you all to Balázs Szigeti, who is joining us live from just outside of Budapest. Balázs is a dedicated bird watcher and the director of Ecotours Wildlife Holidays. Based in Budapest, he leads tours to most of Eastern Europe and Mongolia. Balázs speaks perfect English, has a great sense of humor, and has traveled widely in Eastern Europe, West Africa, and the Americas. He is a gifted bird watcher, able to imitate many European bird calls, even a nightjar. No mean feat. Balázs is also a keen wildlife videographer. Before we turn it over to Balázs' presentation, Victor Emmanuel would like to share his thoughts about this spectacular tour.
I'm so glad you're here to hear this webinar. I think it'll be one of the best we've ever done because the topic is so wonderful. About 20 years ago, I heard about another company doing a birds and music tour in Europe, and I wish that Vent could do it, but we didn't have anyone to put it together. And then Barry Line and I were attending the Space Coast Birding Festival, and Balázs and his partner Attila came by our booth and said, "Would you like to have a cup of coffee with us so we could meet you?" So we went to have a cup of coffee, and the first thing he said to me is, "Would you like to have a birds and music tour in Hungary and the Czech Republic?" I was just astounded. That's exactly what I've been wanting for 20 years. And he offered us the opportunity. Of course, we jumped on it. And Barry and I went on the first tour, and you will hear about it during some of our experiences. But it was one of the 10 best tours of my life. And also, there's some clients outside of Vienna that I visited one time, and we saw some wonderful birds there. And they said to me, "But Victor, if you're interested in really seeing a lot of birds, you need to go to Hungary. There are many more birds in Hungary than in Austria or any other country in Europe because of the way their agricultural policies have allowed birds to exist in great numbers." So I love that tour. I know you will love it. I highly encourage you to go on this tour, let other people know about it. And now I'm going to turn it back over to the main presentation.
Great. Thank you for that, Victor. And now, Balázs, we will turn it over to your presentation.
Well, thank you very much for both of you for the kind words. And I welcome everybody. Thank you very much for attending. I really appreciate what you just said, Victor, and let me tell our version of it just before we start the presentation itself. When we decided to venture into the US market, we've been in the market for almost 20 years, and many of our clients basically congratulated, but they also expressed some sort of concern, saying that ooh, Americans are great fun, but they might be careful because they might be extremely demanding and ask a lot of things from you. And well, okay, this is exactly what has happened, but in the most positive way, really. I mean, when we started to talk to Victor and Barry on the Space Coast Bird Festival, we realized that we never ever had so many questions about details of the possibilities than ever before. So, and this really made us happy because, as I said, we run tours, we love people, we love birding. This is what we do. And but to be able to run a tour with such a precision and attention to detail on the one hand, and on the other hand, to create a tour like this one involves so much creativity that it's really, it's a very special aspect of this tour, which is for us definitely the most diverse in programs and aspects and even habitats. So it's I really love this tour as well, and so thank you very much anyway for this opportunity. And so I think we can move on now to the presentation. Basically, what we are going to do in this following more or less 50 minutes, I will try to take you through each stage, each area we are visiting, and showing most of the birds, habitats, and the musical and cultural aspect of this tour. I have to warn you that the first bit, which especially the part that deals with the wetlands of Hungary, might be a little bit dense, because as Victor said, that is a very bird-rich area, and I mean, I had to miss many species out, but even the must-mention species are plenty. But then we will slow down a little bit, so just bear with us for the first 10 minutes. And another thing I wanted to mention to you, as I'm sure many of you are thinking, how is the travel possibilities and safety aspect in these strange days we happen to live in. And of course, we cannot tell the future. But what I can tell you is that Hungary is member of the European Union and NATO, and at present we feel perfectly safe. We have no issues traveling anywhere in the country or throughout Eastern Europe. So this is something I wanted to mention, and also to maybe it is confirming that in the last 2 weeks, actually, as the pandemic starts to really reduce in number of daily new cases, we have started to receive a lot of interest from all over Europe, from Spain, from Germany, from England. So it seems it's not only our impression. Anyway, I'm sure we can get back to this in the end, but let us start now with the presentation. And first, I'd like to give you a little bit of idea. I'm sure many of you know where Hungary is situated. This is the map of or a look for Europe, and the reason I put it in, because the first part of the tour is in Hungary, which is also called the Carpathian Basin, the Great Hungarian Plain. You can see Hungary is basically surrounded by mountains from the north to the east and southeast, the Carpathians. From the south is the Dinaric Mountains, and to the west is the Alps. That is the entire itinerary you see now on the screen. So we start in Hungary, and after this longish bit drive to the northwest is already Czech Republic. A little bit more of maps. Okay, so you will be arriving to Budapest airport, and the first drive, which is about 30 minutes maximum, will take us to the Kiskunság National Park. The area is, as you can see, is characterized by vast landscapes, alkaline steppes and wetlands, which was part of the once continuous Eurasian steppes, and that's the westernmost reach of this area. Hortobind National Park is a World Heritage Site, but both Kiskunság National Park and Hortobind is famous for still prevailing natural land use, keeping and husbandry of traditional domestic animals, which are actually extremely important to maintain many habitats for bird life. So Hortobind became a World Heritage Site not as a natural, but as a cultural and natural landscape for the special coexistence of traditional lifestyle and nature. And this allows us to, for example, to search one of the highlights, the Great Buzzard, which is found in most of the cases just a few minutes drive outside of our first hotel. Is the heaviest flying bird on the planet and have a very solid population, in fact increasing. I will mention to you many times some of the key species are part of the European Union's LIFE program that is directed to specific species in specific countries. Great Buzzard is one of them, and they are doing pretty well with the annual increase in population of about 10%. This time of the year, they are already starting to build groups, flocks, sometimes mixed, males and females. This is a flock more of female birds. and they are just beautiful. And the lucky thing is that we usually see them just along the specific roads we are driving around. Hoopoes are migratory birds, but it's very well timed, this tour, because we hope to see many of the most colorful birds like hoopoe and like the next one, which I believe will be roller. Some of the birds are still around in or around their breeding range. Yeah, this is the European roller, one of the most colorful birds. And I think we never missed in any tour. Equally so, although bee-eaters, European bee-eaters, are a little bit more tricky because just after finishing the breeding, they leave the breeding area. So you can or you cannot. You are lucky if you bump into them somewhere. Yellow whacktails are beautiful in the wet meadows or around fish farms. One of the commonest bird, tree sparrow. And another highlight, and also interesting, the stone curlew. They are one of the species that is using Hungary and the steppes and the Carpathian Basin as a whole for a stage migration. They build up bigger flocks, and again, just outside of the hotel, we often find little flocks or groups of 20, 25 birds together. Red-backed shrike, a typical insect hunting bird. The males, the one you see now, are leaving slightly earlier. We usually, most of the time, we see females or young birds. That's another shrike species called the lesser gray shrike, typically of eastern range. Turtle dove, a beautiful small-sized dove, unfortunately in steep decline in Europe. And that's another fantastic phenomenon during migration, which the view here doesn't really give you justice. The lines were full for another like 100 meters of house martins, probably an hour or two just before they took off for migration. We were watching this flock just from the bus. Common mammal species include European brown hare and again a very endangered species, the suslik. They are not only endangered because of sacred falcons, but for other reasons. Anyway, sacred falcon is yet another key species of Hungarian and European nature conservation. Although their habitat or breeding range is from Hungary basically to the east as far as Mongolia, Hungary is the place where the population is very strong and the growth recorded annually is the strongest. Short-toed eagle, a beautiful hawk species. And white-tailed eagles are again another species we will definitely see as the population just quadrupled thanks to the protection. Montagu's harrier. And finally, another highlight bird, the Eastern Imperial eagle. I'm sure many of you have been with Joa and Victor Emmanuel nature tours to Spain and Portugal. So you might think it's the same species as the Spanish eagle because they are very closely related. But this species is called the Eastern Imperial eagle. It is also a bit demanding finding them because they change the nest site every year. But knowing some of the best sites, we never failed in any of the previous tours. Another eastern bird, the red-footed falcon, a tiny falcon species, but incredibly beautiful. And I leave it up to you to decide if it's the female or the male. That's the female bird. I think they are extremely cute looking. They usually hunt in the grasslands for flying insects, mostly dragonflies, and sometimes take little mice or lizards. Typical bird of the puszta, as we call it, the steppe habitats. Great white egret or great egret, the symbol of nature protection in Hungary. Every national park have an egret in its sign. And now we are arriving to a very particular habitat, which are these artificial fish ponds. I haven't mentioned to you when looking at the map, but the Hungarian, the Carpathian Basin was characterized by the natural flooding every spring of the two main rivers. One is, of course, the mighty Danube, and the other is the Tisa River, which originates in Ukraine. And they flooded every spring, they flooded vast regions, which of course have been changed as the winding riverbeds have been cut through for shipping purposes. So now these fish farms that are drained every spring and every autumn, they recreate this once natural habitat of shallow water and brackish water. And these are the most important areas we are visiting. They are magnets for birds in migration as well as in breeding time. This is still in the Kiskunság National Park, where we are being, we receive a little explanation on the natural history by the ranger of the national park. And we visit also this wonderful lookout post and towers and hides where we can get as close as we can to the birds. This is a ruff, and this is another highlight, spotted red shanks. You will see now several photos in different plumage. That's also spotted red shank, still almost in summer plumage, whereas here you can see they already lose their black feathers and turn into gray. That's wood sandpiper, another bird we will be looking out for. And these brackish waters, the Oxbow lakes, attract a great variety of herons. You've seen black storks, great egrets. This is a purple heron, just about to leave to Africa as well. Hungary is also a stronghold for our spoonbills, not as pink as the ones in the Space Coast, but they are beautiful species, and they have this particular feeding and foraging method, as the top of their beak is extremely sensitive as they search for crabs or small fish in the lake. So in the first part of the tour, we basically look for shorebirds, wildfowl, and pygmy cormorant, which is yet another endangered species. Also from the east, most of the birds are found in the Balkans, the majority of the pygmy cormorant. Ferruginous duck is another beauty. And owlsets. They of course prefer this shallow water as well of the alkaline lakes. Some of the lakes are, although they were created for massive fish farming, they are now in many places managed exclusively for wildlife and for the birds. So you will see later some of the lakes are kept in, they leave deeper water, whereas others are created so that they favor the shorebirds. Penduline tit. Some of you might know it's called penduline because it has a beautiful rounded shape nest which is hanging down from the tree. Bearded reedling and reed bunting are species that we look for around the lakes, the vast reed beds. Water rail is a tricky bird. They don't often come out so open as this one, but we sometimes use bird calls to lure them out, and this is usually successful. Now we are in the Hortobind National Park, and that is a fantastic narrow gauge train which was created originally again for fish farming, but now turned for tourism purposes by the national park. And of course we take advantage of this because it's just marvelous. It's a 6 kilometer range, long journey, to put it this way, and all along the train ride you see birds in both sides until we arrive to this main lake. We also visit a bird banding station to see some of the species in hand. And then we arrive to the main fish farm, fish pond in the end of the railway line to look at the many. These are all grey-lag geese, the only breeding geese species in Hungary that are forming huge flocks as well before the winter kicks in. And as you will see, other parts are with much shallower water. So we can spend a lot of time really sorting out every species until we are birded out, because sometimes it can be a huge variety. Here you are, you see another flock of spoonbills, you see a lot of waders, mostly dunlins and snipes. The geese are, again, grey-lag geese. Here you see the bigger hooded crow, the one just walked out. You have northern lapwings, you have yellow-legged and Caspian gulls, yet another flock of spotted red shanks, and the further left bird is a green shank. So we basically spend time in and around the fish farms, and also in the steppe lands, the grasslands. That's a bar-tailed godwit and another spotted red shanks in full winter plumage now. When people arrive to Hungary and I tell them we will be looking at 50 to up to 100 owls in an urban setting, they usually wave me off and smile. But actually, this is what's happening in many of the little villages and towns around the steppe areas. You see the huge gathering of long-eared owls, which tells about the healthy habitats and even the arable fields around, because you can imagine like 200, because the winter roosts often build up to 200 birds in one particular town, and there are many towns with roosts. So you can imagine if each of them only consumes one mice or vole, it's a massive intake. So anyway, that's a place in the middle of a town. We are looking at these wonderful birds from very close while taking a nice ice cream. Little owl is another owl species. And here we are in a fantastic site which we managed to include to the itinerary. Actually, it's regarded as one of the most successful species conservation effort or program of the European Union. Is the Danube meadow viper. This form is practically endemic to Hungary. And in the Kiskunság National Park, they have a reintroduction and breeding site for this species. We also listened to an half-an-hour introduction to their ecology. Also, as you could see, we are looking at everything we can. We even put out little traps, night traps for small mammals, which we identified the following days with those who like them. The first hotel in the north part of the Kiskunság National Park is a pretty comfortable hotel, very nicely situated. It does have internet. I wanted to include this because I know many of you are keen on having internet, but the most important aspect is that it has a wonderful garden with several breeding species, but autumn, as I mentioned, is main period for migration. So the early mornings pre-breakfast walks often finds us in walking around the garden. I'm sure you spotted the beautiful golden oriole on the top. But if you go below a little bit, you'll probably see a middle spotted woodpecker. The woodpeckers are resident, but golden oriole is a migratory bird, and we definitely look out for them during the tour. Wood pigeon is a pretty sizey bird, found in the garden as well, and several species of warblers, Philoscopus warblers. This was a wood warbler, and that is another interesting species. It's I don't know if you can appreciate. It's a lesser spotted woodpecker, the size of basically of a tit, very small, the smallest woodpecker in Europe, which is actually breeding in the hotel grounds. Okay, and off we go. We are now heading to the northeast of the country, to Noswai, where the fantastic Nomad Hotel is situated, in the foothills of Buk National Park. This little angle in the route is the half-day detour to visit the Hortobind National Park. But finally, we say goodbye to the wetlands of the Great Hungarian Plain, and we arrive to what we call mountains. I'm not sure if you would call them mountains, because I mean the highest peak in Hungary is about 4,000 feet. So that's what we call mountains. But anyway, the hotel is absolutely fantastic. It's a family-run hotel with very, very nice style, extremely welcoming staff. We go there for years, not only because they are situated exceptionally well, but because we love to eat. And this place, as you will see, as this entire tour, one of the feature, for me at least, but I know for many of our clients, is the incredible tasting menus we are trying throughout the tour. Buk is a limestone mountain characterized by basically by forests, beech, hornbeam, and some spruce. Easy walks, very easy walks here, searching for typical forest birds. You can see the limestones as this part have been, of course, a surface mining for lime. That is one of the highlight, a bird called hawfinch. Very impressive bird, and we never miss them, as they have a good breeding success in this area. We will see several species of tits, and this is probably one of the nicest, long-tailed tit. And yet another woodpecker species, the gray-headed woodpecker. Another much more elusive, the white-backed woodpecker. Trouble for this species is the forest management is unfortunately still, although now is changing, but forest management usually takes out any dead trees, and this species likes dead or dying trees. But in the Buk Mountains, there are still some found. Middle spotted woodpecker, and yet another turtle dove. They are found throughout the country, so I meant to include them in the mountain habitats as well. And finally, one of the highlights, not finally, but definitely something we make a great effort to found, is the Euro owl. As its name shows, again, a bird that is basically from Hungary to the east. But Hungary has a huge population thanks to the nest box project. We put out lots of nest boxes, and once a pair took a nest box, the chicks that grow up now much more easily accept this type of nest boxes. That is a much less active owl species, at least less active during the day. Tawny owl, just outside of the wine tasting cellar, which we attended, and which we attend in every tour. I think, and I say is not very active, you can see what I mean. One of the commonest hawk species is common buzzard. And as I said, it's a limestone mountain, so very good for lizards. That's a green lizard, but also very good for butterflies. Many species, key species for European fauna is found. So those of you you will still see plenty of butterfly species, even in beginning of September. That is another fantastic site, cultural site. This place is called, they are called cave houses, where poor peasant people lived in the 19th century. But this particular place we visit is turned into an artistic landscape architecture site by an artist community. And that, for me, this little cave, to put it this way, is yet another fantastic moment during the tour. These carvings in the wall you see are carved according to the pentatonic scale. So when you sit into one, you have to find the tone that corresponds to this particular window, and that is a very special vibration. So we spend like half an hour, even sometimes 1 hour. I have to chase the people out to keep the program running, because it's just amazing. It really a kind of ecstatic, I don't know if I can call it musical experience, but it's closest to that. Whizzing and zooming. Okay, that's a Cistercian abbey, built in the 14th century. We visit because it's beautiful. It resembles the old times, but also because in the attic there is a massive bat colony, and we are allowed to go up and enter. We are definitely not allowed to play the 100-year-old organ, but we do anyway. And after that, we sometimes search for another interesting mammal species. There is 3 species of dormice in the area. That's one of them, the forest dormice. They are also aided by nest boxes, as you could have seen. Raphael was just taking a picture. Buck Mountains, and especially where we stay near the city of Egret, is very famous for the wine production. So, of course, we vast vineyards all around our hotel, and that was one of the reasons we can't miss a wine tasting experience. We basically start with a guided tour of about 30 minutes, where the daughter, who speaks perfect English, guides us through their history and what type of wines, especially talking, of course, about the most famous wine, which is called the Bull's Blood. She's a real connoisseur, so you can put any question about winemaking, and she will give you a professional answer. But this place as well is not only about drinking, but also incredible cuisine, which is prepared locally in the cave, in the oven behind the chef. It's either a traditional size, which are traditional type of food, which is rather sizey meals, 2 or 3 course at maximum, or yet another, we may opt to a tasting menu up to 15 courses in a degustation style. So each course is accompanied with a wine that matches the most. And if you haven't had enough, you have still a chance tasting from a 40,000 liter wine barrel. Another cultural aspect, which I think you cannot miss if you visit Eastern Europe, and I was glad Raphael and Victor and Barry agreed to include a little bit of gypsy music. Gypsy people originate from India, and they have arrived thousands of years ago to Eastern Europe. They are a sensitive issue. They are a very particular culture and often discriminated because they are social conditions. But they have a beautiful, beautiful musical heritage. And we organize a professional gypsy music group to the hotel. So one of the So one of the dinner, I meant to say, one of the dinner is accompanied by them playing basically for us. It's a fantastic experience. On the one hand, because it's really a special thing that a small group plays only for us, so it's much more personal. But also because it's a wonderful music, wonderful music. Okay, as you can see, the nights are also used. It's an optional program, but according to the feedback of many of your fellow travelers, that's another highlight. We visit a bat researcher, just 5 minutes, literally 5 minutes drive outside of our hotel, still in the Buck Mountains. We erect mist nets, and where they usually do that to monitor bat species. And he explains it's an incredible insight to these otherwise unseen animals. In 1 hour, we often catch above 10 species of bats, and each with completely different hunting methods and ways. So it's a fantastic evening program after the dinner. This is another dormice species called the edible dormice. You might wonder why, but in Slovenia, it's another southeastern European country, they really used to eat them. What a bizarre idea that is. They are very cute animals anyway. All right, and off we go. We are on our way to Budapest, one of the most famous cities of Europe or even the world. Another World Heritage Site, the Buda Castle or the Royal Palace. This is the Matthias Church and the Fisherman's Bastion and the vista on the Danube River. Budapest was found in the 13th century and consists of two parts divided by the river. Buda, where the castle is more hilly and more upstate, with much more green and gardens and stately homes, and the castle district, of course, while Pest is much more urban area where most of the population lives of the country. It's relatively big size. It's 2 million people, so 20% of the country's population is found in Budapest, because some of you know that after the First World War, Budapest or Hungary lost, I think, 60% of its original territory. So we remain with a huge capital and a rather small country. Budapest is also told to be the thermal bath capital of the world, because underneath the city is a massive reserve of spring waters that produce 70 million liters of water every day. So it's the richest city in medical waters, and one of the main source of tourism. That's one of the most famous, the Széchenyi Spa, which we visit because the buildings are just wonderful. So much thermal water. It's just a fun fact that even the hippo in the Budapest Zoo is kept in and provided with this thermal water, because it's thought to be very close to the component, the mineral component, very close to the Nile River. So That's the St. Stephen Basilica. Both in Prague and Budapest, we use professional licensed tour guides that explains what we need to know. Budapest is famous for a very strong Jewish community, and we visit several synagogues. That's a Neolog synagogue, but of course we can't miss the biggest synagogue in Europe, and I think is the second biggest in the world, probably. Here we learn a lot about famous Hungarian Jews that, of course, many of them left the country. I'm sure József Purlicer is a name familiar to you. But many, many Hungarians that left made to the West, and many of them to America, inventing nuclear reactors and even the hydrogen bomb. That's Hero Square, another place definitely worth to visit. Here we are explained the history of the country since the settlements, the first tribe arriving to the country. And a little personal note, this is the place, the Hero Square, where since 2014 we started to organize with a lot of grassroots organization a peace symbol demonstration, which I actually attended yesterday. This one is from 2014 against the Iraq war and all sort of violence. And yesterday we did the same thing with many organizations, including the Greenpeace, against the war in Ukraine. We are back in Buda again. Wonderful, breathtaking vistas on the Danube from the castle. That was during the preparation tour, I think. About the Hungarian language, I think it's worth to know that probably the most difficult language in the world, but definitely in Europe, it's the only and the widest spoken non-Indo-European language. I don't recommend to try. Another interesting aspect, what we call ruin pubs. Some young people thought, let us rent some ruined house, and how about not to renovate them, instead decorate them with the most funny furniture, including this Trabant. I'm not sure if any of you know, but one of the symbol of the Eastern or the communist bloc is the Trabant, which is an East German car, was an East German car, basically made of sawdust and paper. I mean it. And that's a sight. You saw this little, I don't know if you can call it a car. It's a place to see. We also visit the main market hall, so you can learn about what we eat. Of course, most of the sausages and everything has to do with the famous paprika. But the evening is one of the evening is spent in this wonderful little boat, not very attractive from outside, but it's beautifully renovated from within. And we enjoy an incredible tasting menu again, where on the one hand, you can taste traditional Hungarian meals presented, as you will see later, in a very modern way by a master chef, but also is another chance to see most or many highlights of the city while floating on the Danube. This is the Parliament building in the night with the beautiful lightning. And this is how you have the Parliament building behind. Again, the chain bridge, which was the first bridge built in the 17th century. to connect Buddha and past before they were united. The Citadel and Freedom Bridge, and behind it the Technical University. As you can see, the weather even in the evenings are still very mild. It's about 65, 70 Fahrenheit, 75 even. It's a tour of about 2 hours, so very comfortable. And these are some of the meals we are being served. And in Budapest, we attend, again, just outside of our hotel. We rent a beautiful venue, and the famous Liszt Ferenc Orchestra provide us with a quartet, and that's a wonderful chamber performance only for us again.
The highlight was probably the concert that the one we have seen so far. Well, the chamber music, and also like the tour on the Danube, which was wonderful, and the birding has been great. The first day was amazing. Everywhere we turned, we saw birds.
Yeah, it takes a lot of organization because, of course, they are Ferenc Liszt orchestra is one of the very, very famous orchestra in Europe and around the world, and we need to arrange with them. Once we know the musical program in the Czech Republic, we have to make sure that you don't listen to the same pieces. But it's a great cooperation, and they are always very happy to play for us year after year. All right, so after finishing our program to Budapest, now we leave Hungary, and in the I don't know if you can see in the map, we are going through Austria, and we enter to Trebon, to Czech Republic. This photo I just included because that was a very funny moment in the preparation tour. I told to Victor and Barry that I think the best way for us in terms of the itinerary and for the comfort of the clients is to stop and have lunch at the fuel station. And they were looking at me very strangely, and I didn't understand. But when we arrived to this place, I think Victor explained me that, Balázs, you have to know that in the best case in the United States, you can have a Coke maybe in a fuel station, but not a proper lunch. Anyway, so we stop on the way before we arrive to Trebon. Trebon is a fantastic place, completely different habitats and landscape to that of Hungary. It's more mountainous and much more forests, of course. And Trebon is famous about its incredible system of fish ponds. Their fish ponds are so intricately built that they got a UNESCO World Heritage status just for this. They built in the 14th century and incredible waterways, and as I said, a very intricate man-made system to keep the water fresh and flowing through all the. I think they have 800 lakes of different size just around this little medieval town. We spent 2 nights here again, admiring the beautiful, colorful buildings. We go out to this watchtower where you can appreciate the area, and the castle garden park is yet another perfect area for bird watching in spring and in autumn. Here the program is interesting because we do a little bit of guided tour around the city, but you get a half day free. Basically, you can roam around. We provide you with maps. It's a very little area, so no way to get lost. And our hotel is situated in the center, looking at this main square you have seen. And so you can stay in the hotel and relax or walk around on your own. But of course, the mornings and in the afternoon, we do guided bird walks again, searching for more woodpeckers. This is greater spotted woodpecker and some migrants, including lesser white-throat and probably the nicest looking blue tit. The commonest bird, great tit. And this beautiful green woodpecker. One of the best places to see a quite chunky bird and also noisy. Grey whacktail is another bird that breeds and winters here around the little streams and waterways. And then we go to the fish farms, visiting especially one of them, which is very productive for us year after year. As you can see, we can drive along the dike, so it's very comfortable. Again, not much walking involved. We make little walks, wander about, but basically we are always close to the van. Red-crested pochard is one of probably the most beautiful duck. Snipe, common snipe. The fish farms produce mostly carp, and I mean, definitely not in the States, but even not in Hungary, it's not among the most favorite fish to eat. But the way they can prepare it in Trebon is another world. It's another story, really. You wouldn't be able to tell what you're eating. It's so delicious, and the hundreds of years of tradition of how to prepare, how to cut carp, makes it almost on par with ocean fishes. Okay, yet another flock of spoonbills, and the bigger ones above were gray herons. That's a red deer. And we look for kingfisher, definitely, along the dikes and the edges of water. Great crested grebe. They look very funny with the stripes when they're in a young age. This is an immature bird. Finally, we are on our way again to Sumava Mountains, but on the way, probably my favorite place during the entire tour, a place called Český Krumlov, perhaps the best preserved medieval city in Europe, and outside of Prague is the best World Heritage Site in the Czech Republic. Again, the program here includes a little bit of guided tour, but basically we have about a half day on your own. So you can wander about. We agree always on a meeting point and time, and you can walk about as you wish. It's a great opportunity to do some shopping for souvenirs. You can climb up to the castle, or just roam around the cobblestone streets. Visit the Gothic Castle. It's incredible, the history. I mean, the castle was founded in the 13th century, but the first earliest documented artifacts found was 4000 before Christ. So a very, very ancient settlement. It's not a very birdy place, but the only place where we always look out for dipper, white-throated dipper to be more specific, and we never miss them. It's such a wonderful bird and a very special way of foraging, as you can see. And finally, we arrived to the Sumava Mountains. It's again a very interesting area. That's the hotel we stay, more like a stately home again. The place with numerous plateaus and raised peat bogs, glacial lakes, and remnants of primeval forest is a complete mosaic of different habitats. I don't know about the States, but Europe, you found very, very few places you found real primeval forests. And Bubinski Forest, which is in the Sumava Mountains, is one of them. And we definitely go and visit this place. It's wonderful also because it's very, very little disturbed by human settlement, because the German-speaking inhabitants were expelled after the Second World War. So very little number of people live here. It's almost like a little bit a deserted zone along the border, which used to be the border of the Eastern, the communist bloc. Now, of course, it's bordering with Austria and Germany, so easy to move about. Some of the autumn colors are already present in the mixed forest, the sedges and and one of our boggy bird. We always manage to see glimpses, so I'm definitely keen to, the next group should be able to see the spotted Nutcracker. A noisy bird, and this time of the year they are very busy collecting nuts, of course, as their name shows. Missel thrush, the biggest thrush species in Europe, very common, just as missel thrushes, found in bigger flocks on the forest edges and the big hay meadows. Yellowhammer, much more close always with the settlements where they keep domestic animals. And finally, probably the biggest walk of the entire tour is in the Bobinski forest, the primeval forest. It's probably 4 hours back and forth. But the species and admiring this real ancient forest, that's a common cosbil, I think worth the effort. And we take our time, a very slow pace. Some people can stay. If you're not able to come all the way through, you can always stop or go back to the van, but the driver is always there. Very similar to lesser gray shrike. This is a northern brother of the lesser gray shrike called great gray shrike, and this is our jay, the Eurasian jay. Some of us collect food for dinner. Very rich in mushrooms. That's European Magpie, a very tame one from the last tour we had. We are definitely getting relaxed by this time of the tour, this stage of the tour rather. And of course, if it's a forest, then we definitely look for the biggest woodpecker species, the black woodpecker. Never missed so far, so I'm confident we will be able to show this magnificent bird. Also very noisy, always tells about his activities. This is our robin, European robin, much smaller than your robins I'm aware of. Still a beautiful bird. Firecrest, always sticking to the spruce forest, and crested tit are some of the most typical birds here. Eurasian nuthatch. And last year, for the first time, we were very lucky to add another and probably the rarest owl species, the Pygmy Owl, size of a thrush. I must admit I had to whistle its call throughout the walk in the forest, but I think annoying people finally worth the effort, which everybody agreed when these birds started to answer, and finally we were able to spot and put it in the scope, so everybody saw it well. Red squirrel, still very common in spruce and mixed forest. And by this time, people can't stop in the night. So we go out, even here, we go out to visit a little stream to look for native fish species like this trout. And the next one is, a pike. Just outside of a hotel, nothing very strenuous. Okay, we place great importance to select our drivers. That the picture just included for this. And finally, the last leg of the tour, we are off to the north to Prague, capital of Czech Republic. Again, I won't go into many details. This place is just superlatives. It will take your breath away. Much smaller than much smaller than Budapest. And again, we have a professional licensed guide, Lucy. Lucy is with us since the first tour, so she really knows exactly what we are looking for, what the pace, the length of the explanations. That's the famous Charles Bridge. We visit all the most important sites in Prague. The astronomical clock tower, the Charles Bridge, Wenceslav Square, where the famous revolution took place in the Czech Republic, breaking. This is Lucy, anyway, with one of our group. So with the Jewish community, and of course the story of the golem can't be missed. And the incredible story, what they have done with the person created this famous watchtower. They blinded him back at that time so that nobody else copies, or that he's not able to build another one like this. So Prague remains famous about this. And yet in South Korea, in Seoul, they made the exact replica of this astronomical clock tower. We are in Prague Castle, which is simply the biggest castle in the world. And we take one day just for Prague. Again, basically visiting the castle with the bus, and the rest of the day is by easy walking. And of course, we can't miss one of the musical traditions. With Raphael, we find this gentleman who every year plays us with his hurdy-gurdy, basically.
Andělom svýho prake, byč vzduch, neuhodí tě, nemá tě. Andělom svýho prake, odkud to nešel Bůh.
So as you can see and appreciate, even from this little, is a completely different emotional tone and a feel about life than, for example, the Hungarian gypsy music, and that's one of the aspects I really love about this tour, that you really have an insight to not only to the best classical pieces, but also to the musical heritage of both countries. And in Prague, finally, we have 2 nights of great concerts.
These kinds of events are so special,
They really help make a trip.
and they make a birding trip what it is. It is. So
It is.
anyway,
It's been a lot of fun. It's just quite lovely.
yes.
Well, this trip has been a lot of fun because we spent time in the countryside and the cities. We've seen stuff that people would never see if they just didn't come on a trip like this. We particularly liked the chamber orchestra concert in Budapest. Was just phenomenal. Just 8 of us in the room and a quartet of 4 people. That was great. The Danube boat trips were super. The seeing various birds was just wonderful. The chasing the owls was so much fun when we saw those in the national parks. All in all, it has just been a great opportunity to see
Brilliant.
stuff and to meet Balázs and to hear his commentary on the countryside and the people, and it's just been a wonderful time. Glad I did it.
Wonderful trip. I saw everything I wanted. Extraordinarily lucky.
And with this, I thank you very much for your attention. I hope it wasn't too long and you could follow and appreciate the great variety of activities and birds. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Balázs, for that wonderful presentation. That was outstanding. I would like to ask the audience for any questions that they might have for Balázs. You can answer, or you can send them in the chat or in the Q&A section in the control panel. In the meantime, while those are coming in, I would like to announce our upcoming webinar. The Southern African countries of Namibia, Botswana, and Zambia are a nature lover's dream. Individually, each country is a natural history standout. Together, they form one of the world's great regions for birding and wildlife. The key to this diversity is water, the life-giving source for thousands of birds and animals. For many years, our tour to Namibia, Botswana, and Zambia has been among our most popular. For our next webinar presentation, Vent Tour leader Jeff Lockwood offers a guided online tour of these evocative yet unsparring lands. From west to east, you'll discover the waterhole magic of Namibia's Etosha National Park, witness the miracle of the Okavango Delta, where millions of gallons of water from rains in the highlands of Angola create a wildlife paradise before flowing into the Kalahari Desert and simply disappearing. And behold the awesome spectacle of Victoria Falls, fed by one of Africa's great iconic rivers. Join us on March 24th for a tour de force presentation of birds, wildlife, and water as seen through the eyes of an expert naturalist and veteran tour leader. And now back to Hungary and Czech Republic. Let me check here for our questions. We have a question here, Balázs, from Cheryl. She wonders, is vegetarian food available?
Yeah, absolutely. I must say, during the communist times, it was a problem because not eating meat was a very, very strange thing in Hungary. But these have changed in the last, I would say, 15, 20 years, and still changing. So there are, throughout the journey, absolutely. And now even in the countryside, everywhere, you can get vegetarian meals. Sometimes the variety are not as I would wish, but absolutely, and without any problem. And in most hotels, they are really high standard. So there is also good variety you can choose from.
Could you talk briefly about the weather, the highest and the lowest? What should be expected as far as packing outerwear or travel clothing?
Yeah, in Hungary, I think it's slightly warmer, and with the climate change, it is getting warmer and warmer. But I would say the average is 25 Celsius, which would be 77 Fahrenheit. It can be sometimes warmer, maybe 80, 85, and the coolest would be, I mean, the evenings are more chilly, I would say 64, 65 Fahrenheit in the evening, so no extremes at all. The forest can be more wet in Czech Republic, but still mild basically. So prepare for, on average, I would say 68 to 75 Fahrenheit.
And Cheryl has a question here. She wonders, is the trip also scheduled for 2023?
I think it is, but we are looking at 2022, September 2022. I think it also depends on the success, how many people books this year, but we are ready.
Wonderful. Well, I don't see any other questions coming in at the moment. So if anyone does have any other questions, please reach out to me, ben@ventbird.com. Respond to the email that you get tomorrow about attending this webinar. I want to thank Balázs for your wonderful presentation and your time today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
And I want to thank everybody in the audience for attending today. So have a great the rest of your day. Hope to see you next time.